Hey YouTube, I'm Q and I make stuff. Welcome to my workroom. Alright, today I'm going to make a mini unicorn. I often call these guys pocket unicorns. They're made out of fleece. They're a scaled down version of a larger unicorn that I make. This is actually like 60%. This one's a little bit longer than the others, but I'm going to make it out of this cream minky, this gold star stuff. And one of the things, it's kind of a secret, then I really almost don't even want to give up how easy it is to make these guys. So I'm going to open up my little piece of fabric. I have a splint on my thumb because I'm experiencing something called a trigger finger, which is a repetitive motion syndrome. So, and this is a 4-way stretch. So it stretches this way and it stretches this way. But this particular stuff has less stretch going that way. So we want our long parts, our legs, the length of our body and stuff to go this way instead of this way. Is there a stain on there? Oh, I guess it'll add character. Fold my little piece back in half. And I want to make sure that my grain line, even though it's a 4-way stretch, it still has a grain line. So make sure that this fold doesn't have any ripples in it. And so that might mean that this is crooked because I didn't cut it straight and I wasn't even trying to cut it straight, so no bigs. So here I'm placing the unicorn on the fabric. I'm putting the legs kind of opposite each other to just give myself room to optimize my fabric, and then I'm going to pin it down. I'm pinning so that the heads of the pins are out of my own way when I sew. I've used this pattern 1,000 times, so I've got holes poked in it in opportune places. What I'm going to do is I'm going to fold the piece, fold it in half. You can see I already kind of salvaged this to make a bigger horn to begin with. So maybe I'll just use that seam that I already have. Or not. Who cares? It's kind of magic. It's not rocket science. It's like you can just kind of wing it with scraps. It's the best thing about rag dolls. Okay, so there we are. We are ready to go over to the machines. So the actual sewing of the unicorn is super easy. I just sew around the pattern shape that's pinned to the fabric. And that's it. Around the legs, I do a little funny little diddly-doos around the curve. Doing curves on this particular machine is a little funny, but I'm getting the hang of it. I'm using my knee lifter to help me get around the curves. And you'll see in the next leg that I'm gonna kind of float it a little bit. All right here. Little floaty, where I didn't have the presser foot all the way down. Around the ear. The other ear, and we're done. Back at the cutting table, I'm gonna cut around all my parts. I'm gonna poke a hole in the eye. So what I'm doing here is I'm taking a piece of fabric that is also stretchy, and I'm gonna glue it down the opposite direction of the stretch, so the two stretches go against each other. That way, when I put the safety eye in, the fabric won't pull out and cause the eye to pop out. It's an added little bit of security to help keep the safety eyes in place. So I'm going to use a couple of tools here, a chopstick and a straw, to help me turn these little arms right side out. So I'm putting the straw in and then pushing it through with the chopstick. And it makes turning the little tiny bits a whole lot easier. So now I'm going to poke the eye holes through that fleece that I just glued down. I should have just did it all at one time, like glued the fabric down and then poked all of the holes, and I always forget to do that, so I'm not reinforcing good habits. Cutting out the ears. My scissors were really dull, so I switched to using this rotary cutter for the small parts, and I'm using a ruler just to get a good straight edge on the bottom. I'm about to clip the corners so when I turn the ears right side out, they don't have any little hanging bits. So I'm clipping the curve inside the neck of the unicorn, so when I flip it right side out, the curve is smooth and doesn't have any puckers. So here I'm stuffing the horn. I'm just gonna stuff it and set it aside. I always do this so that I don't lose track of the little tiny piece. When it's stuffed, it's a little bigger and easier to keep track of. And I put a pin in the end just to keep the stuffing from coming out. Stuffing the unicorn. Stuff, stuff, stuff. Here I'm testing a little bit for like how squishy it is, how appropriate is it. Do I have enough in the nose before I get into the body? And here I'm making a cavity, and I'm going to fill the cavity, and that prevents lumps on the outside of the body, because it's easier to just make him a chonky boy by stuffing down into that cavity. Here I'm pinning the outer edges that'll help me find where the legs go when it's time. Stuffing the arms, ooh, always a little bit of a pain. I use these hemostats to help me get down in there. I used to use just a stuffing stick, aka a chopstick, and it was challenging. And then I learned that using tools such like these little hemostats or a pair of long needle nose pliers works also. Hemostats are a little bit more elegant. They have a lot more control and typically aren't quite as dirty like a tool as tools are. So hemostats it is. So with the legs, I'm checking for kind of roundness, consistency, firmness, you know, all the things you want in a leg. You don't want lumpy legs. I noticed my cat Jazzy sleeping in my scrap bin. Look how cute she is. Whoa. I want to touch her tummy, but she's a trap. Bear trap. So here I've got the legs pinned on, and I'm going to go about sewing them on. I'm also going to use a ladder stitch here to do that. And I'm very sorry, but it's going to be out of frame, so I'm just going to cut ahead, if that's all right with you. After looking at the cat, I missed my whole bit about ears, but you know what? No big deal. Ears, there they are. They're sewn on. So you just saw me sew one of the legs on, and I'm about to do the other. So the way I do this, I don't know if it's the best way. I'm gonna be real honest. I'll sew a leg on, sew the other leg on, and then we have the thigh gap, and I will do a little bit more shaping, and I'll pull this pin out and do some more shaping before I sew the whole thing closed. A lot of times in the past, I've left the top of the leg open so that I could stuff more stuff down into the leg. But I find that I don't think they sit really well when I do that. They don't have a very good butt. Even here, I think there's probably a less elegant and more effective way to sew the leg on. I've seen people, I don't know how they do it, but I've seen folks with this type of thing pin it all in place and then just like vroom, with their sewing machine across it, and I just don't know how they do it. Like, what? It doesn't make any sense to me. So like this guy is more thin. So this one, maybe we'll get some reshaping done and kind of narrow its hips a little bit. We'll focus some of the chonk in the badonkadonk, maybe put it into its belly, try and get it out of the hips. But it has a lot to do with the fabric itself. So here, like I can massage it a little bit so it's got a little bit more of a hip joint. But I'm going to sew the other leg on. We'll do that in super speed 2. Super speed! We'll go fast! And, yeah, so. Super speed. Moving on to the arms, I'm using kind of a 3-point stitch. I used to use buttons, but for babies, I just stitched them down. And then I pull the needle through to the other side, a couple stitches at the top, and move over to the side, and I alternate from one side to the other. And I just put about 3 stitches on each side, and that holds them well enough. And here I'm using embroidery thread, and I'm using 3 strands instead of 6. And now cutting the mane. Schnick, schnick, schnick. Easy peasy, fluffy. Maybe trim that up a little bit. It wasn't quite majestic enough. Snip, 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 snip. Fluffy, fluffy, fluffy. Same with the tail. Dig, 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 dig. And here we go. We're going from just kind of a meh object to a magical beast. The mane and tail, the horn, is what really makes this thing all come together. As you can see, I sewed the horn on. I neglected to film that part, or something happened. I don't know. Whatever. There it is. Tail placement's really important. If it's too low, it's wrong. Here, watch me struggle. I'm gonna do this kind of knot that I learned from my dad. My dad was a he tied flies for fly fishing. And you go 1 wrap, 2 wrap, and you, on your first run, it goes one direction, on your second run, it goes the other direction, and you lock it down. Tied. Bing. I understand my dad was a legendary fly tyer in the Pacific Northwest, where we were from. I knew it was a thing he did, and I knew that he was probably pretty good at it. At his funeral, the stories of his fly tying were quite extraordinary. There, a belly button. It's a lot more visible. It's a little low, but you know, it's a mythical beast. Who's to say a mythical beast doesn't have a low belly button? So there we go. I'm gonna change our angle here. So here's this little pocket unicorn is completed. It's completed, I should say. With its fluffy mane, very majestic tail, and a belly button. Good to go. Ding. I hope you enjoyed working on that pocket unicorn with me. I had a lot of fun with it. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye. I can talk all day long until it's time to talk and say the things in a certain order. Ugh. So, if you liked working on